everybody, Swayze here, and in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the 2023 QX50 Sport. Now, this generation of the QX50 has actually been out since 2019, but new for 2023 is this Sport trim level, which sits kind of in the middle of the pack. Now, just a hint for you, this is actually the one I'd recommend, so stick around to find out why. In today's video, we're going to talk exterior, interior performance, handling, safety features, and much, much more. Everything you need to know if you're considering one of these as your next vehicle. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, let's kick the conversation off starting with pricing. You can get 5 different trim levels of the QX50 and various packages within. Now, starting off, you have the Pure trim, which starts at $40,000. You can step up to the Luxe, which is about $44,000. Jump up to the Sport, which is around $49,000. We'll talk about what features come with that. Then you can jump up to the Sensory, which is about $54,000, and then the highest trim level is $57,000. That is the Autograph. Okay, so let's say you pick the entry level, which is the Pure trim. What comes standard on that vehicle? Well, actually a lot of things. Starting off, you do get LED headlights up front, and they have the signature daytime running light from Infiniti, which looks really good at night. Gives the front end a really cool appearance. You also still get 19-inch wheels on the Pure trim level. You also get Infiniti's ProPilot Assist, which is their entire suite of safety features, which include lane departure warning, lane departure prevention, adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring. There's so many safety features baked into this vehicle that you pretty much can't option to get more safety features. Everything just comes standard. Coming to the back, the Pure trim also includes LED taillights, and you still get the dual exhaust ports in the back. In addition, starting in 2023, every single Infiniti that you purchase comes with a 3-year complimentary maintenance. So that means everything from the oil changes, the tire rotations, all of that is included in your purchase of a new Infiniti, which is a couple $100 that you probably save every single year. Okay, now before we jump inside and talk about interior amenities that are standard, I do want to show off the Infiniti Key. This is a little bit updated from the previous generations. One thing I will mention though that's standard is remote start. So that is really nice to have for those cold winter days or hot summer nights. Jumping inside, a lot of what I'm about to show you is actually standard on the Pure trim level. Starting off, the Pure trim level does come with a 6-speaker audio system. Not too bad. This one in particular in the Sport is the upgraded 12-speaker, but you can get up to 16 speakers if you choose the higher trim levels. Jumping inside, all Infiniti QX50s come with a 7-inch digital gauge cluster. You have an 8-inch touchscreen over here and a 7-inch touchscreen over here. There's no upgrade to get these screen sizes. These come standard on all Infinitis. You also do have a wireless charging pad down here, which is standard. I should also mention you do get wireless Apple CarPlay and wired Android Auto on all QX50s. Okay, now let's talk about what comes included with the higher trim levels, starting with the Luxe, which is one step above the Pure. Well, first off, if you pick the Luxe, you will get a standard panoramic moonroof. Also, if you want genuine leather seating, you're going to have to upgrade to the Luxe because the Pure only comes with like a synthetic leather. Also, heated front seats is included in the Luxe, along with memory seats for the front driver's seat. And on the Luxe trim level, you have the option to upgrade your 6-speaker audio system if you pay a little bit more money, and that will upgrade it to a 12-speaker audio system for the interior, like the vehicle I'm sitting in today. One thing I will say about this audio system, it is built by Bose. It does sound really crisp and clear, but it doesn't have that much low-end bass. What I mean by that is it doesn't really rock your seat or your mirrors or really allow you to feel that bass inside your body. That's something that my brother actually noted in his Infiniti Q50 that he purchased several years ago. So much so that he ended up getting a mini aftermarket subwoofer to put under the seat to give it a little bit extra bass. And now it sounds like a pretty good sound system, whereas the one in this vehicle I'm sitting in feels like it could use a little more oomph in terms of bass. So just keep that in mind if that's something you need to have in your vehicle. Okay, so just above the Luxe trim level, you have the Sport, which is the vehicle standing in front of me today. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is a brand new trim level for 2023, and it's kind of the middle of the pack, but it comes with some pretty cool features that differentiate it from the other trim levels. Starting off with the front end, you'll notice there's a lot of additional black accents that you don't get with the standard QX50. Furthermore, the front end actually looks a little bit different. As you can see, this front grille area actually looks totally different than every other QX50. They've revised the front fascia, giving it almost a larger grille look to it, even though the grille is the exact same size, but this bottom portion is no longer body painted. It kind of has additional grille inlets over here at the bottom and additional black plastic over here on the side near the fog lights. I think the front end looks pretty attractive, and I kind of hope they carry this over onto the other trim levels of the QX50 because it does almost look like a facelift, even though this is just a different trim level. And then you have additional black trim pieces over here on the side near the fog lights. Now, with the Sport trim level, you do get 20-inch wheels, and they are run flat tires. You don't have a full-size anti-spare in the back. And you'll notice more black trim pieces over here. Everything that was traditionally chrome on the regular QX50 has now been replaced with black trim pieces, including the window surround. Take a look at the roof rails. They're also blacked out. And that kind of gives it a more aggressive, more sporty stance to it, or sporty look to it. And the same applies for the back. This is typically a chrome trim piece, but because of this being the Sport, you have it as a blacked out trim piece. Same with the Infiniti badge back here. Even down to the exhaust pipes, they're actually a blacked out or grayed out look to them, and they look pretty nice. I think especially with this color, which is the anthracite gray, the black and the gray look really good. I think white would look pretty good on this vehicle as well. And honestly, the exterior of the QX50, this is a pretty handsome looking vehicle. I've liked it ever since it came out back in 2019, and with the addition of these black trim pieces, it looks even better than the standard QX50. Okay, jumping inside, you'll see exactly why I would pick the Sport as the trim level to buy if you're considering buying a QX50. But first off, let's just talk interior in general. Starting off with the door panel, you do have nice leather soft touch surfaces throughout. That's what you would expect from a luxury vehicle, but it's nice to see that they didn't cut any costs on the interior. You do have hard touch plastic down here, but that's to be expected. You have a cup holder down here, and then this is all soft touch. You do have automatic up down on the window switches, which is really nice. And the first thing that the Sport trim includes is a 12-speaker Bose audio system as standard. You no longer have to pay for that like you do with the Lux. You also get this cool looking blacked out, almost carbon fiber like trim, and it's actually textured. So unlike what I reviewed in the Nissan Altima, where it pretty much just looked like black vinyl, this thing actually has a texture to it. Almost feels like carbon fiber. It looks really nice. I like how they added this to the interior to spice it up a little bit. I also like the use of aluminum over here into the door handle and above the door handle. Jumping inside, I really like this Monaco red with the black contrast. That looks really, really cool. I love when there's red interiors or brown interiors mixed with black. I think they did a really good job with this. And this is what Infiniti touts as the zero gravity seats. They're extremely comfortable. They're supposed to be more ergonomically designed to your buttocks and your back. I'm not sure exactly if that's true, but they are comfortable seats to sit in. And this is kind of what it looks like from a cushion standpoint. Not as soft as some of the other vehicles I've driven from Infiniti and Nissan, but they are still really comfortable. I do like the white contrast stitching over here as well. Now, the third thing that the Sport trim includes is ventilated seats for the driver and passenger, and you also get a heated steering wheel. Speaking of steering wheel, let's jump inside and take a look at what that looks like. This is your standard Infiniti steering wheel. On the left-hand side, you do have your controls for your audio and your menus over here on the center display. And then on the right-hand side, you mostly have your cruise control features, as well as some of the functionality to control this gauge cluster. Now, this is a 7-inch gauge cluster in the middle, and unfortunately, this is the only size you can get. Infiniti does not offer an all-digital display on the QX50, although it does offer it on the QX60. Some of the other competitors in this field do offer an all-digital display, so I kind of wish they threw that in here with this 2023 quasi facelift, especially for the Sport trim level, but that is not yet available, likely on the next generation. You do have paddle shifters over here on the left and right side. We'll talk about those when we get behind the wheel to drive it. Over here on the left-hand side, you have your headlight controls and some of the functionality for your cruise control, and just overall a really nice dash piece. This is all leather wrapped, so none of that rubberized material. All leather. You have a piece of stitching that goes all the way to the passenger side, and it also looks really good over here on the passenger side as well. You have a little bit more of that blacked out trim piece, and you do get ambient lighting over here if you pick the Sport trim level or above. And it's not very noticeable, but it is a subtle light located underneath this trim piece and on the door panel. You also get a little bit of ambient lighting over here. This piece over here, I don't know if you can tell or not, this is actually one strip of lighting that goes all the way back and into the center arm console. Really nice use of ambient lighting. I love when vehicles throw that in there, and this vehicle does not disappoint with that. Now, moving to the center display, you do have this 2-screen setup. So it's an 8-inch screen up here, 7-inch down here, and this is something that they've utilized in previous vehicles as well. My brother's Q50 has this exact same setup, and it's not bad. It does seem to be a little bit dated. Starting with this top screen, let's turn the vehicle on and show you what that looks like. You do get a round view monitor, or I like to call it a 360-degree camera, standard on the Sport trim level. Again, another reason why I'd pick the Sport over the other trims. But the one complaint I have about it is the camera quality isn't fantastic. Some of the competition do a little bit of a better job. The thing that I don't really like is I can't select which quadrant to show. The only thing I can do is by cycling through this button over here, here, I will be able to cycle through pretty much 3 different settings, and that's it. Infiniti does this on all of their vehicles, and I don't really get why they don't just allow me to choose a specific quadrant that I want to zoom in on like some of the competition do. One thing that is nice about this though is as you're pulling up or creeping into like a parking stall, this thing will automatically turn on because it kind of knows that you're about to park the vehicle, so you don't even have to push this button. That's really nice. I like that they did that. Now, the one complaint I have about this dual screen setup is 95% of the time, this top screen will display your GPS, and I'm not quite sure of anybody who really needs your GPS on 95% of the time. And it's also not a very good GPS system. It's kind of laggy, it's a little bit dated. Maybe this was okay back in 2010, but here for 2023, there's much better GPS systems. There's not much else you can do here. You can push this little menu button, and it'll pull up just some additional features like your call history, your steering assist, kind of just some random features here and there. And then if you do push this map button over here near this center controller, it will pull up a little bit more functionality where you can add your weather, your turn-by-turn, your fuel economy, and your audio, but it's still not as robust of a system as what you get in some of the German competitors. The other thing to mention is this touchscreen is a little bit different looking than this touchscreen. This one almost looks like it's a piece of glass. This one almost seems like it's like a touch-sensitive panel. And look, even in this setting, I can't actually move the GPS because the audio system is on. Coming down here, this is the 7-inch touchscreen, and this one is pretty good. I do think the software needs to be updated a little bit because it's starting to look a little bit dated as well, and the swipe functionality just isn't as good as some of the German brands, but this one is a little bit better of a screen than this one because there's just more functionality here. You can hit up your climate, you can do your audio, you can do your main menu with some of your safety features included. So this one just seems a little bit more robust than this one, and it almost makes this top screen obsolete. Now, I don't actually mind having 2 screens. That's something that Audi has done for a while, and I like that you can have maybe your climate control down here and some other functionality up here. I just wish these 2 screens talk to each other a little bit better. In fact, I honestly think they should have just created one large screen, maybe like 16 inches, something similar to Tesla, because they have the real estate for it. They have this little panel gap that they could just eliminate and create a large screen, and that would honestly be an industry leader for a vehicle of this size. But unfortunately, they've just kind of opted for this 2-screen setup, and it just doesn't work as seamlessly as you would like it to. I don't mind it. It's not this car's biggest drawback. This shouldn't be something that prevents you from buying the vehicle. It's just not as advanced as some of the competition. One thing I do like about this setup over here is you do have physical buttons. So many of the German competitors are going to touch-sensitive buttons, and it's so much nicer to just reach over and push a button here or there to adjust something rather than have to finagle or play around with the center display to be able to adjust your temperature settings. You have your heated and ventilated seats over here, seek and track buttons. Another thing to mention about how dated this system is, you do have a CD player over here, which is something you don't see very often in vehicles nowadays. And then the same similar features over here on the right-hand side. I really do like that they have physical buttons to be able to play around with the center display. Coming further down, like I mentioned earlier, you do have a wireless charging pad. You do have a USB port for USB-C and regular USB, 2 cup holders. This is your shifter, which is pretty easy to use, nothing too complex there. And then your start-stop button is located over here. You do have your parking brake, your auto hold function, and then these are your drive modes. Unfortunately, it doesn't really change the instrument gauge cluster, but you do have a little graphic over here that changes the look of the vehicle. That's pretty nice to see, but again, just needs to be updated because this has been the same since 2015. Over here on the right-hand side, Infiniti gives you additional functionality to control the center display, so you can actually zoom in and out of your GPS by using this little controller knob, similar to what you would find in the German vehicles from about 5-10 years ago. You do have a back button, and then this also lights up at night as well. Looks pretty nice. Your center arm console is pretty decently sized for a compact crossover. You've got 2 different compartments over here to separate your goods. Coming up to the top, you do have your lighting controls and your button to open up your large panoramic moonroof. This is really nice to have. You can close it up so you don't have any of that hot sun burning down at you when you're in the middle of summer, or you can open it up to enjoy the weather. Now, the one complaint I do have is your bar to open up the sunroof is actually located pretty far back here. It's almost behind the first row seats, but your sunroof only opens like halfway. I don't get why they didn't just let the sunroof open all the way to the back, giving you almost a convertible-like feel. That'd be a competitive advantage of the QX50. Before we jump into the second row, I just want to talk about how spacious the front row is. It's actually a really comfortable comfortable and large looking interior. That's something that Japanese cars always do really well. Their interiors look a lot larger than their exteriors. That's a really good thing. I reviewed a Mercedes GLC and that one felt a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter than this vehicle. So if you're looking for a spacious cabin where you could easily fit 4 adults, I don't think you need to go for a larger size than this. Speaking of sizing, let's jump into the second row and show you what that looks like in terms of legroom. First off, starting with the door panel, same nice materials as the first row. You still have that carbon fiber look to it. And then you do have soft touch padding all throughout and a cup holder down here. Looking at these semi-aniline seats, they look really nice as well in the second row. And then you do have a little armrest over here where you can actually slide a smartphone. That's really nice. I don't see that on every vehicle. Jumping inside, this is where this vehicle has some of the largest amount of space in this segment. This is about 39 inches of legroom in the second row. And this is plenty of space for 4 adults to sit comfortably in the vehicle. In fact, you could probably fit a 5th adult over here because this center hump isn't very massive and you have tons of legroom to be able to fit 2 more legs over here on the left and right hand side. Taking a look down here, you do have your climate control settings, and then you do have 2 USB ports, USB-C and regular down there, as well as another little cubby for maybe like a smartphone or some snacks. One thing I'm not seeing here is a household power outlet. That would have been nice to see over here down at the center arm console, but nonetheless, a pretty nice interior overall. And your headroom is plentiful as well. The other nice thing about these seats is they do recline. Right now, they're in the most recline setting, but I can put these up a little bit more straight to sit a little bit more upright. And your headroom is still pretty decent as well. I'm about 5'9". Now, trunk space is fantastic as well. You do have the motion activated lift gate, which is standard on the Lux and above. And taking a look at the interior, you got about 31.4 cubic feet of space back here. And honestly, again, it's something that looks larger on the inside than it does on the outside. Underneath here, you do have a little bit of a cubby. And then over here on the left-hand side, you do have your cigarette-styled outlet. Again, no household adapter in here, which would be really nice to have. You do have some lighting over here to light up the cabin. And then if you pull on these, the seats will actually fold forward. I have some stuff inside of the seats, so that's why it's not folding down all the way. And then you do have a little spot over here for your groceries. So a pretty nice cabin overall and larger than I expected for a vehicle of this size. But if those aren't enough amenities for you, you can upgrade to the Sensory, which will include a head-up display on the windshield. You also get rear heated seats and you get a 16-speaker Bose audio system. Now finally, you can upgrade to the Autograph trim, which just makes the interior a little bit more posh. Starting off, you get rear sunshades. You also get rear climate control, so tri-zone climate control. You get quilted leather on the seats and a ton more suede. You got suede over here on the center arm console all the way up to the screen. You also get a suede headliner. And instead of this fake carbon fiber sporty trim, you get a wood trim instead. So a really nice interior on the Autograph trim. Now this particular vehicle in front of me does come with all-wheel drive, which is necessary for this type of climate. And just so you know, you can add that as an option on any trim level for about $2,000. Okay, now let's talk performance. Ever since 2019, this vehicle has come with the same engine and there's only one option. It's a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder and it's a variable compression engine. We'll talk about that in just a second. Power output on this thing is 268 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. And according to Car and Driver, 0 to 60 is just about 6.4 seconds. And I believe it. It's actually pretty quick for a vehicle of this size and this small of a displacement motor. Let's talk about the variable compression, the VC. This is the same engine that I talked about in the Nissan Altima, and it's actually really clever engineering. You have 2 different types of compression ratios. So if you're stomping on the pedal and you're trying to get the best 0 to 60, this thing will lower the compression ratio in the engine to give you a little bit more power. At the same time, if you're coasting, you're going on a road trip, you're trying to get the best fuel economy, this thing will increase the compression ratio to get you the best MPG. Really smart engineering here and really ingenious because some of the other competitors in this industry have larger V6 engines and this thing just has a 2-liter 4-cylinder. Now, in terms of fuel economy, let's talk about it. You're looking at 22 in the city and 28 on the highway for a combined 25 in this all-wheel drive version. Okay, now all that power is sent through a CVT continuously variable transmission. Now, I know most people do not like continuously variable transmissions, but this one really isn't that bad. Let's hop behind the wheel, let's see how this thing drives, and let me tell you my thoughts on this CVT. Okay, one of the first things you'll notice sitting inside of this vehicle is just how nice the interior of the QX50 is. It's a really luxurious, nice place to be. Any person who has sat in this passenger seat for the past week, every time they sit down, they're always like, whoa, this is a really nice looking interior. Everyone's impressed. Nobody has sat in this and be like, oh, it looks cheap or it feels cheap. That is definitely not a word that's used inside the QX50. Now this is the Sport trim level, but that makes no difference in terms of the engine. Every single QX50 comes with the same 2-liter turbocharged VC turbo, and it has been the same since 2019, but it is a really good engine. I'm gonna put it into sport mode here, and so you can kind of see how it drives. One thing to mention about this vehicle is it does not have the auto start stop that a lot of American and German manufacturers have. Once again, this is in sport mode. Yeah, I mean, it gets up to speed very, very quickly. Car and Driver says 0 to 60 in 6.4 seconds, and I think that's accurate. I think it might even be quicker than that because this thing feels pretty nimble, pretty quick to drive. Now, the steering is pretty soft. It feels like a luxury vehicle. It doesn't feel like something from the German competitors, you know, like a stiff steering wheel. But that's because this car prioritizes comfort over sportiness, even though this is the Sport trim. In terms of ride quality, this thing is very, very comfortable. Now, this does drive on 20-inch wheels and run flat tires. And run flat tires are a little bit stiffer than just traditional tires. So that's why this thing may not be as comfortable as something with traditional tires, but it's plenty soft for a luxury vehicle, and it's very quiet on the interior. That's something Nissan and Infiniti do really well, kind of giving you a serene environment when you're driving inside of the cabin. Now, this vehicle does have paddle shifters, and even though this thing does not have a traditional torque converter automatic, it really doesn't have any gears to paddle shift through, but it gives you that simulated feel that you are downshifting. And it works pretty quick. Look, I just downshifted in a second. I just upshifted again. I downshifted. Like, it is a very, very quick transmission, even though it's not actually shifting gears, which may be the reason why it looks like it's shifting quickly. You know, if somebody wasn't really familiar with CVT transmissions, you probably wouldn't be able to tell that this is a CVT, especially because of the downshifts and the quick shifting gears. And just the way it performs, this doesn't feel like a traditional laggy, slow CVT. It's plenty quick. As long as that turbocharger spools up, you got plenty of power. And, you know, it performs very, very well. The one complaint I have in terms of performance and handling has to do with the sound. And you may be able to hear it on camera, maybe not, but when you're accelerating in this CVT transmission, it just sounds like a moaning dog. I mean, it does not sound very good at all. That's really the biggest drawback to the CVT. It's not how it performs, like a lot of people say. It's not very slow. It's not, you know, lackluster in terms of fun. It really has to do with the sound. We're about to get on this freeway on-ramp, and I want you to take a listen at what it sounds like. Okay, so we are in sport mode right now, and I'm gonna try to accelerate even though there's vehicles in front of me. I just want you to hear how this CVT just drones when you're accelerating really hard. I hope you heard that. It just has this drony sound to it that just kind of detracts from the luxuriousness of the interior. And this is just a common problem with CVTs. I was hoping that with this latest generation CVT, they could probably get rid of that, because everything else about the CVT is fantastic compared to an automatic transmission. There's really not a big difference except for the sound. And I just wish that was a little bit better. That's something you're gonna have to get used to. It's not awful, but it almost sounds like a simulated sound is piped in, but it's not. That's just the CVT transmission. Aside from that, once you get on the freeway, you can turn on your ProPilot assist using the button on the steering wheel, set your cruise control, and this vehicle will essentially steer itself down the middle of the lane. Now, you're gonna have to hold onto the steering wheel, otherwise it will alert you. But otherwise, you know, for road trips, this is fantastic because it will keep you centered in the lane. It doesn't, you know, travel left and right. It stays really centered. Does a really good job of that. Nissan and Infiniti have a really good semi-autonomous driving system, and this vehicle is no exception to that. But aside from that, the performance and handling is wonderful. This thing not only drives very well with its comfortable ride quality, interior cabin noise, its safety features work really well. Right now, I didn't even touch the brake pedal and it's braking on its own. And it's a really nice cabin to look at with this dual color setup with the red and the black, the stitching, the aluminum. I mean, an interior like this from a German manufacturer would cost a lot more than the interior of this vehicle. So kudos to Infiniti. And in terms of performance and handling, the only drawback is the sound of the CVT, which you can get used to over time. Okay, to finish off this video, let's talk about the reliability. Japanese manufacturers are generally known for slightly better reliability than some of the German competitors. According to US News, this received a 78 out of 100 in terms of reliability, and I have a feeling it's going to last pretty well over time. Talking about warranties, this vehicle comes with a 4-year, 60,000 mile basic limited warranty, which is pretty nice compared to 3-year, 36,000 for some of the competition, and you get a 6-year, 70,000 mile powertrain warranty. Okay, so to sum up this video, is the QX50 any good, and would you recommend I buy one? Well, the answer to both those questions is yes and yes. Honestly, I've really enjoyed my time with this QX50, and I think it's a really underrated vehicle. I'm really surprised they don't sell more of these vehicles every year. It's a really handsome looking vehicle overall. As compared to the Lexus NX, which is probably this vehicle's closest competitor, you know, the looks of that vehicle are a little bit more controversial than this one. I don't think anybody would really deny that this is a good looking vehicle. It's got really cool sculpted lines on the outside, beautiful interior, nice use of materials. There's really only 2 drawbacks with this vehicle that I don't think the average consumer is really going to notice. First off, you have a pretty outdated software on the interior. It's in need of an update. You need to have some more graphics, you need to have a better user interface, you need to have that top screen doing something else aside from just an outdated GPS system. But nonetheless, you still have all the tech you would expect from a modern vehicle. You still have over 15 inches of screen real estate on the interior, which is pretty nice to see, and not all other competitors offer that. The second drawback of this vehicle is the CVT transmission, and really not because of how it feels, but because of the sound. It kind of detracts from the serene quality of the interior, and I kind of wish they would just mute that CVT transmission to make it a little bit quieter. Otherwise, the engine and the transmission actually perform really well together, and this thing accelerates pretty quick. A little bit better than some of the same competition at this price point. Speaking of price point, that's really where this vehicle shines. If you're looking for a German competitor, or even maybe a Lexus that comes with the same amount of features as the vehicle behind me, you're probably looking at a $10,000 to $15,000 premium. This one right here costs about $53,000. To be able to get a GLC or a BMW X3 with blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control, nice leather surfaces throughout the interior, heated steering wheel, you're probably looking at about a $65,000 car. And the question is a Mercedes really worth an extra $15,000 over an Infiniti? That's going to be up to you to decide, but personally, I don't think it is. This thing is still a luxury vehicle, it rides really smooth, it's very quick in its performance, and it comes with a lot of bang for your buck, so you can spend that $10,000 to $15,000 on maybe another car instead of a Mercedes-Benz. But I do hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all the weekly car videos. Also check out all the social media down in the description below, and let me know your thoughts on the QX50. Are you considering one, and why are you not considering one? Because this thing is a really good bargain, and there's really not that many downsides to it. But until next time, everybody, I hope you stay schwazy, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.